Hello, everybody, and welcome to the launch of our Fez Talk series on leadership and temple management and all kinds of stuff that we're going to talk about going forward. And it's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm Bob Conley, and I'm from Michigan and a member of Saladin Shriners, and this is my wife, Jo Neal.
Hi.
And we're going to talk to you today just about some skills that you can use to help you in your temple and in your life, really. So the first one of our series is on leadership. And I want to ask you if you've ever been in an organization that had poor leadership.
Hands up.
Yeah, I'm sure that all of us have. What did that feel like? What did it mean for you to be inside of an organization where you were just kind of going through the motions? You just really didn't feel that anything was connecting. And it was difficult for you to kind of find your way inside of the organization. Now, some people have kind of a natural tendency to step up and to become involved. Most people don't. And it's up to leadership to determine where an organization is going, what its focus is, what its mission is, and how that's going to move the organization forward. So in our talk today, we're going to talk about leadership in maybe a little bit of a different perspective than what you're used to. My wife here has been in nursing and in healthcare administration for many years, and has some great stories about really bad leadership and what that might look like. So, honey, why don't you talk a little bit about your leadership experiences?
Absolutely. And one of the things I want you to make sure you understand, the concept of leadership is not what's on your name tag. Now, I've looked, there's about everybody goes, yeah, here's my name tag. Which side should I wear it on? But what is it? What's on your name tag is not who you are. Leadership is the behaviors that you display. Leaders get things done with and through other people. So what we want you to be thinking about is you don't have to be the leader to be a leader. I've had opportunities where I had frontline leadership staff that changed an organization from the bottom up with the top down. Anybody who's familiar with lean concepts, the PDCA cycle, I see a head shaking over there. The plan, do, check, act model. There's a lot of things that are tools to help you, but what we're going to talk about, what we're going to spend the next little while about is talking about your mindset. Your mindset, how do you have the mindset of a leader?
So, my Masonic background is that I'm a past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the state of Michigan. And that means when you're done, you now get the title PGM, right? And that means Power Gone Man. But I was Grand Master a long time ago, almost 20 years ago now. And through that period of time, we did a lot of things. We've done a lot of events, we've had a lot of programs, and but we could never get it really to the next level. And leadership consists of looking in the mirror, right? You take the organization and you look at it and you say, where's it at? But before we can do that, there was something that was missing in my leadership of my organization. And it was that I just didn't look at myself. How well am I leading me? Am I somebody that other people want to follow? That's a question leaders need to ask. And as Jo Neal said, it's not dependent on what's on your name tag, what title you might have, right? John Maxwell talks a lot about the 5 levels of leadership. And the first level is position. And position level leaders are followed because the people have to, right? So you work in a company and you might be a manager, you might be a foreman or a supervisor, might be a nurse manager or director of nursing. And the people around you will do what you tell them to do because they have to, right? You have authority over them. As far as that extends, you can direct them, you can guide them, you can lead them. But if you ask them to step outside of that and go beyond that role, then you're into this place called permission leadership. And while John Maxwell says there's 5, I only think there's 2. There's position leaders and there's permission leaders. And if you're a permission leader, it means that people have given you their permission to follow you, right? So how was I doing as a permission leader? Were people following me? And the old statement is, if you're leading and nobody is following, you're just out for a walk. So I started this journey of looking at myself And what I realized was that I had a lot of work to do for me. Things start to turn then when you understand that mindset is really where I'm at as far as talking about permission leadership. What was my mindset when I was just kind of the guy who was grandmaster and ordering people to follow me? Might be you, might be potentate of your shrine temple, and you're just telling people to do stuff. If they don't do it, then we tend to look at them as the reason. Well, they're just uninterested, or they're lazy, or they've got too many other things to do. But really, we need to look at our own mindset. Mindset is a big thing.
Mindset is huge.
And when we started then as our couple's journey down this path, I realized a lot of things about my mindset with my wife.
Could we have a moment? Could we just have a moment?
And how that impacted our relationship. I was single for a long time. I was a bachelor for 18 years. 18 happy, wonderful, delightful years. Lonely, unfulfilled years. And then we found each other. But I came to her with my mindset, right? And the true measure of a couple, a really good couple, that enjoy each other's company, that love to be with their spouse, that love to be with their friends, is really a mindset that says, you become more important to me than I am. And I want to spend my time making sure that you are successful.
We're getting all that on tape.
Yeah.
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 Just checking, making
Yeah.
sure. Because that doesn't always happen. Can I have a shout out on that? We always think we're putting our spouse first. Last night, we arrived at the airport. Now, I have, ladies, gazillions of suitcases. And they got a big heavy sign from TSA. This one, of course, puts his little bag up, and we get off the plane, and we're walking through the airport. Now, I'm real familiar with this airport here, and I'm watching him, and he's going right to the rental car. He seemed to have forgotten that I had checked luggage. So talk about so little things like that. When you think about it, yes, he does put me first. Yes, now I could have went, well, how dare he not think about my luggage? Well, I kind of did.
You did.
I did kind of do that. But
which isn't easy, because there is a entire chain of herniated Delta airline employees from Detroit through Tampa because of her luggage.
But the point being, though, is that this outward thinking of the other person takes work. It doesn't happen automatically. And we think we're clipping along, and we think we're doing a really good job, and we think we're seeing people as people, and then we jump into ourselves, and we're just walking through the airport going to the rental car. And I think that happens to all of us. We have a mentality, a mindset of, I'm getting the rental car. Well, what about the other person? What about the other people? And that's a message we want you to take away from our conversations together, is as leaders, and we haven't really brought up the concept of servant leadership, but we are to serve our followers, our friends, our families, each other. And we want to make sure you have some understanding of why we always go into ourselves instead of looking outward.
Good. When we look at mindset, then I want you to think of it in this context. I'm just going to draw a circle here. This circle represents our results, right? What drives our results? Organizationally, personally, family, what drives the results of our life? Okay, and you can think of it as behaviors. So the things that you and I do, right, determine our results. The things that we do every day, the things you do organizationally, the things you do in your shrine temples, the things you do in your family, or your Job's Daughter Bethel, or my Masonic Lodge. Those things that we do determine our results. How are your results been?
That's a question for you guys.
Maybe a little less than what we want. So what we generally do then is say, well, we want different results, right? And we kind of move the result bar over a little bit. And then we start to develop some programs and some products that will help you to achieve those different results, right? Those things are behavior changes. That's what we want to do. We want to change your behavior. So if nobody's coming to lodge or nobody's coming to a shrine temple, we tell you that you need to kind of spice it up a little bit. Maybe have a football party or open the bar a little earlier or something along those lines. That's what we tell you to do. That's a behavior change. Does it work? Probably not, at least not in as far as you had hoped it would. And the reason for that is that we never thought about, and what I want you to think about, we never thought about what drives behaviors. What drives the things that we do? Right? We just think about behaviors. We think about our actions driving our results. We've got that. We've pretty much figured that out. But it's the underlying thing that drives behaviors, and that thing is mindset. So the mindset says, this is what I do to achieve these results. Make sense? So it makes sense then, if that's the reality, and I believe that it is, that if I want to change my behaviors, I have to change my mindset. And this is where I want you to think about changing your mindset. Go from a place where you say, I'm the leader, to a place where you say, I'm the follower. Your success is the only reason for me to be the leader. So when you look at the other people in your organization, wherever it is, whatever it may be, the only thing that I want is for you to be successful. Because in your success, I'll find mine. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make you just as successful as I possibly can. That is my success. Now I can tell you, it's a big step when you decide to do that, but the outcomes are going to be tremendous. When other people, we're going to talk a little bit about trust, but when other people realize that you really do mean that you really do mean that I want you to be successful, whatever that means for you, and I'm going to do everything that I can. I can't fix everything, but I can fix some things, and I can help with a lot of things. Whatever that means, then other people understand that. The organization begins to have that as its kind of overarching behavioral drive, and the results you get will be significantly different. And that means everybody, by the way. So inside of our organizations, you know, the Masonic fraternity, the Shriners, Scottish Rite, whatever it might be, those are men's organizations. Fellas, we're never going to be successful if our wives, if our spouses, if our girls, if our kids aren't successful as well. We've got to do everything that we can to make their world successful, whatever that means. And it means that there's going to be a lot of things coming down the road that we have to look at, we have to talk about. When you understand that your success is determined by how impactful you are on other people's success, I guarantee you, everything starts to shift.
And I think part of it too is how we see the other person. Haven't you had a situation where you had a waitress or waiter who was rude? Can I have a shout out? Everybody in the audience, raise your hand. You've had a situation where, and didn't you go, well, that snotty little waiter, how dare they be that way? I'm not going to leave them a tip. Or what happens is you're thinking about, instead of thinking, I wonder if that's a college kid going to school, and this is finals week, and they're struggling, and they're not totally connected. But instead, I think, well, that kid didn't bring in me my coffee. Who am I thinking about at that point? Answer? Me. Instead of looking outward and saying, gosh, I wonder what's going on with that person. That's one of the key lessons we want you to understand. One last story. Many of you probably have heard this story. There was a man on the subway, and he was watching this man had 4 kids all over the place. They're climbing and screaming, and the person's going, why can't that man keep those kids under control? Oh my, they are wreaking havoc in this subway. And he's getting so frustrated, thinking that's really bad parenting. Now, again, haven't we said, why won't those people get those kids under control? So finally, the gentleman says to the dad, can't you get your kids under control? We've all thought it, but not necessarily said it. And the man looks at him and says, you know, my wife just passed away, and I really wasn't keeping my eyes on those kids. That person made a judgment of that individual and his children instead of taking a moment to see him as a person. And that's part of the biggest takeaways from all of these sessions that we want you to see is see each other as people. Get out of yourself and look at somebody else.
That's great. Outward. Outward, we see each other as we are. People. People. That's it. Each of us has hopes, dreams, challenges, headaches. We have aspirations. As people, as objects, you don't matter. As people, you matter. And that's what we want you to think about as we go forward then. When you look at your shrine divan, when you look at your families, when you look at your DMLA chapters, when you look at your Job's Daughters Bethel or my Masonic lodges, I want you to think about the men, the women, the kids in that room and in those lives and what they're going through. And then ask yourself, how can I help them be better? How can I be successful for them? You know, and it doesn't take a lot. We're talking about a kind word, hello, a smile on your face. Not easy for me. I'm not a guy who smiles a lot. A smile on your face, hold a door open, help somebody move a 400-pound piece of luggage. Those kinds of things make a big difference. The world today seems to be, to me, a very uncivil place. Inside of our world, it is still a very civil place. Let's make sure it stays that way. So, leadership, outward focused, shared success. I'm going to make you successful. I'm going to do everything I can to make you successful. Whatever that may mean for you and I'm going to make you successful. Everything that I can possibly do. Outwardly, we're going to move our behaviors to a place where we achieve better results. Joe Neal and we're going to help you get there.
Yep.
How do you deal with an inward leader?
Good question. You know, the difference between outward and inward isn't in the other person. This is where it's so difficult for us to kind of get our arms around, because what we want to do is we want to say they're being very inward or very inwardly focused, right? Very focused on them. When we're doing that, we're actually inward. So when I have to work with or to talk to or to help somebody who's inward, I'm going to be outward about it. I'm not going to change them. I can't, right? I don't have the power to change them. I don't have the power to change anybody except myself. So I can say, when I recognize that somebody's really inwardly focused, there's a lot of reasons for that, and that's fine. I don't have to deal with it. But I'm going to deal with you in a very outward way, which says that I'm concerned about your might be performance. I want to know, is there anything that I can do to help you get through this circumstance? You know, we all deal with people who may have their own self-interests at heart to an extent that's higher than the organization is, or certainly the way we feel, right? And again, there's nothing I can do about that, but there is a lot that I can do about how I react to that. And I can step back, I can take a breath, I can say, I don't know what they're going through in their world, but I can help them a little bit, make it a little bit better. So it might just be in some cases that it's best for us just to smile, to say, I can't deal with this right now, and we walk away. And that's okay. If we do it, understanding that my intentions are for their best interest and for their best success, even if that means I'm not going to do anything, then we're okay. That's an outward way of dealing with an inward person.
And I think the key piece of that too is we always say, well, if they change, once they do something different, and it isn't, as Bob said, it is never about the other person. It's about you. And I think we've all been in situations with difficult family members, difficult situations, and we always say, you know what, if they would just do this, then I can be okay. And that isn't what it's about. It's about changing yourself. And there are some people, and I think all of us, there are some people you have to put up your shield, like not let those people in. There are those folks out there in the world, and we've seen them, we've been around them. And protecting yourself and recognizing that you are enough just as you are, just who you are, and not worry about what other people think or feel.
You mentioned several things that do not work at the shrine for increasing attendance. What are some things that the divan or the potentate can do to increase attendance that you have found have worked in the past?
Great question. The first thing that I would do, though, is I would really ask the nobility. Far too often we see a problem, and we then think that we have the answer to the problem. But the problem isn't us. The problem is we don't know what the problem is because we don't take the time to ask where that situation begins. So if you have, a lot of us are from temples in the northern latitudes, right? Where in the winter it's going to be tough to leave your nice, comfortable living room.
That's why they moved to Florida.
That's right, but a nice, comfortable chair, and you got a little fire going in the fireplace, and have a nice dinner. And I'm supposed to leave this and go to a meeting of the temple where we read the minutes, we yell about the finances, we complain that they're spending too much money on the circus, and then everybody leaves and goes home back out into that blizzard. You're going to have a real tough time selling that to even me, that that's a good way to spend my evening. But if somebody was to ask me, what would it take? What would you consider to be a night well spent? What would that look like? The answers that we get might be very different than what we think they are. We can put together all the programs in the world, but if somebody says, I don't want to do it at 7 o'clock at night, I want it to be at 5:30 and I can just leave from work, I can drive to the temple, I can have a nice meeting, a little dinner, maybe a cocktail or two, head home. And be home by 8, 9 o'clock. Might be something to think about. Again, I'm not saying that I know what it is, but did we really ever ask the nobility what it would take for them to come to a meeting? And maybe that standard meeting thing that we're talking about, maybe that time has passed for that. We go to meetings. How many young men go to meetings the way that you and I know it? Today, Joe Neal and I, we do 90% of our meetings, get-togethers, all those kinds of things
On Zoom.
On Zoom. So the context of maybe having a meeting is also shifting. Then you say, well, if we don't have a meeting, what on earth do we do? What would we do if we didn't have meetings? We don't do anything else but have meetings. Maybe that's where the answer lies. Maybe it's in an entertainment or an educational program. Give them masonry. You can't get that anywhere else in the world. Give them shrindom. You can't get that anywhere else in the world. You got a beautiful shrine hospital close by. Man, take the families there. Spend a day being amazed, being enriched, loved by people. Yeah. Inwardly says, I'm going to focus my meeting on myself. Outwardly says, I'm going to find out what you want. And then how can I help you get that thing? It's a great question.
One of the things that we've been talking about together is this sense of connectedness, and that we live in a very disconnected world. Lord knows you can sit in your house and never have to leave it. I even have the groceries delivered. Don't tell Bob. But we don't have to connect with people. And we have a whole generation of folks who are unfamiliar with a handshake, with a gathering, with sitting at a table, with having that sense of connection. When we moved to the city where we moved to, I didn't know anybody. I had a job and I was working, and I was lonely. My child was an hour and a half away, and I was beside myself. So finally I said, and again, this happens to be me, I said, I'm going back to my Job's daughter Bethel. And I went back to my tribe. It was a different one than I was from, but I walked in and I was welcomed and I was connected. And I think one of the things that Masonry, Shriners, Joe, all of us have a sense of connection that we need to pass that on to the next generation. And what does that look like? And why isn't that next generation joining us? They could gain from what we have to offer. I'm truly blessed with friendships, for 50-year-old friendships, and people that I can pick up the phone and call and know if I'm in a city, there's a Shriner or a Mason or somebody from Job's that I could call. And we need to build that sense of connection. And I think that is one of the things that, going back to people wanting to come, not being made to come, oh, it's the first Monday of the month, but wanting to be with them because it's their friends. Yeah.
You said that we're not connected. I think we're more connected than ever through technology, and we've lost the sense of the human
Bingo.
connection. And that's really what
This is a good,
the Mason and the Shriners
start from the
still
beginning.
have available
Yeah.
for us.
that connection, that personal touch.
That's a really good question. Say I.
Sure. I had a comment on, you said that we weren't as connected like we used to be. I believe that we are more connected now through technology, but we've lost that sense of human touch and
Yes.
human feeling
Yep.
through our tools that we've produced. So I believe that the Shrine and the Mason brings that back to us, and that's where the real secret or the real feeling that we get with our interactions through these organizations.
Spot on.
Yeah, I agree.
Spot on.
I agree 100%. But we have to make sure that we deliver that in a way that makes sense. And you can't do that in a business meeting.
With many volunteer roles, your time as a leader is so brief. What are ways to instill this as a leadership philosophy for others to follow?
I think you have to take the context of leadership out of a term of office. Today we're looking at George Herbert Walker Bush and his final goodbye service, having passed away. Today he's more highly regarded as a leader than he ever was while he was in office. And I think that's the reality of a really great leader, is that they don't view themselves as leader inside of the context of an office. They view themselves as leaders who happens to be holding an office. And you look at the really great leaders. Shrine has a classic example of Jack Jones. Jack Jones was an incredible leader. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was imperial recorder or imperial potentate. He was Jack. And people followed Jack because they knew that he had their back, that he could be trusted, that he was this exemplary person. Even in my life, Jack was one of my most profound mentors, a man who had every right to complain about his status in the world, his position from a health perspective, and yet in that I never once, not once, and I knew him for a long time, heard one complaint about his situation come out of him. He looked at every day as an opportunity to be of service to other people, and he was. So I view leadership not in the context of a position. I look at it in the context of, over a long period of time, you have people who inspire others to do great things, who are concerned about their success, and then help them do that thing. Take leadership, this concept of leadership, out of the office that somebody holds temporarily. We all do. It's always going to be a temporary position. And then put it into the perspective of what can I do to help the organization be successful? What can I help you with? How can I help you become more successful in your goals and aspirations? You know, the first thing I have to do is find out about you. I have to find out who you are. What drives you? What motivates you? What are your hopes, dreams, challenges, headaches, aspirations? What are those things? That's what Masonry does. It affords us an opportunity to build brotherhood that is marrow deep, bone deep. I've traveled all over the world as a Freemason. I wouldn't go any other way. I can't imagine going any other way. I got friends all over, right here too. And it's because we have that basis of trust and of friendship and of brotherhood.
I've been in organizations when people say, when it's my turn to be at the top, this is how it's going to be. Anybody else shout out on that one? And I think that's sort of what you're referring to. And the DeMolay folks in the room, the famous line, from the ranks you ever merged, into the ranks you will return. Mm-hmm. And it's when you return to the ranks, do you continue to lead? Do you have leadership behaviors? It isn't a one-time flash in the pan, sorry. And that's a piece, yesterday afternoon we were talking about that why do people when they get out of office never come back? It shouldn't be that way. That should be the point at which you're more willing to serve. Anybody who's ever served in a leadership role, a position, I don't know about you guys, but when I started, I knew very little. When I got done, I was a lot better. So why can't I take what I learned and devote that into helping other people be successful? And I think that's a piece that we haven't done a really good job of welcoming those leaders back into the fold.